Alright, so here's my screencast on Schoology of my course called Presidential Elections, Section 1. And the first thing I guess I'll show is my links tab. So I've built this tab that has various links for class. I mentioned last time the few that I did have already up were a delegate count, as well as a link to latest polls for students to see and sort of use at their discretion to figure out what they need to make their predictions for various states and whatnot. I won't spend too much time going through these links. It looks like my computer's being a little slow, but I'll look one more time at all the links we have. We have the delegate count. We have the latest polls, which are from realclearpolitics.com. Here is that one called Who's on Track for the Nomination. This is kind of a more cartoony way for them to look at it. I think it's the interface of some of these links. I tried to pick ones with interfaces that were a little bit more accessible. These just graphically seem to make sense a little bit more to me and might for students. There's a link in which kids talk about the candidates, just the summer outlook for where we started last summer and where we're headed. So predictions that people might have had, pollsters and various people in the process some time ago. There's an iCivics link. Most of our students at school all have accounts through iCivics, so this is something that I don't have a lot of more specific information on it, but I know that they're all able to access this, and a lot of schools will give students their own login information, so there is a link to that in case they ever need to log in for that. I put in another folder for all the candidates' websites so they can look a little bit more easily at well, probably that's empty right now. I'll have to work on that. Anyway, I wanted them to be able to look at candidates one by one as well, in case they're looking at platforms or they're looking at where their campaign's stopping and where their money's coming from. I also put in a little link to political cartoons that I guess isn't really working either. In there, I was hoping to have slightly more accessible weekly political cartoons for students, especially for English learner students for whom the vocabulary is a little bit tricky when we read articles and we do our writing activities. So I thought the cartoons tab would be a good way for them to graphically get involved, just because I think it's, especially for English learners, there's so much vocabulary involved in a process like this that just seeing those pictures right away, they'll be able to know this cartoon is making fun of Donald Trump, etc. One of the first assignments I put on here was choosing a vice presidential candidate, excuse me. And there were a few components to it. The first one was to just reply in the form of a comment. I said some considerations that I wanted them to think about for this activity were what qualities we look for in a vice presidential candidate. Somebody who shares the same ideas as you, somebody with really boldly different ideas, somebody who's been in the race already, who might have dropped out or who might just not have as great a chance as it gets closer to convention time. And why or why not? What are the pluses and minuses of those things? The other component of this was so not only to leave a comment here, but to ensure that we're getting online in other ways and expanding on this a little bit. I started this class mind map. And I invited students to pretty much just go ahead and, oh wow, this isn't even, there it is, excuse me. This is a mind map that I started that students are free to go right in and edit every time they can come, and they can just type right in here. So what I did was put running mates in the middle. We have qualities right here, so running mate qualities, anything that they want to see in a running mate, in a possible VP nominee, they can add to this qualities section. As well as they can make their predictions for who they think, if Ted Cruz ends up being the nominee, who they think would be a good candidate for Ted Cruz. They can add that right under Ted Cruz here. So we have Democrats on this side, Republicans on this side, and students can just freely post their own. Otherwise, maybe I'll just compile their responses from comments and put them on here as just another way to more easily organize our thoughts. This will be a lot easier, hopefully, to see. And for students to identify with than just a long comment thread with 20, 30, 40 responses, especially if we have a big class. So this is another way for them to just, the colors are nice, just the interface of it is a little bit more visually appealing and easy for them to understand, I think. So I said that yeah, they could add to the mind map, or I could sort of do that. I would figure that out at a later time. And also, I gave them an article to look at just to get them thinking about this. It's an article that sort of tries to predict if Trump is the nominee, who his running mate would be, and the plus minuses of choosing certain people or not choosing certain people. This is one of the assignments that I'd created. Another one was making primary predictions actually for the New York primary, which is going on all day today. And so the assignment was to write 2 paragraphs, which could be either uploaded in the form of maybe a PDF via Google Docs, because my students are pretty familiar with that, or just as a comment, as a 2-paragraph comment. But the other way that I wanted to get them online with this was to present that in a way. So the first paragraph was going to be a prediction about the Democratic winner, how they got there, what polls or what links they might have used to figure out that kind of information, just to get used to citing that a little bit, and also just the implications for that. If Hillary Clinton wins New York, here are the implications for her campaign. If Bernie Sanders wins New York, here are the implications for his campaign. If Bernie Sanders loses New York in a landslide, these are the things that might happen going forward. Things like that, just to get them, yes, writing about it, but also used to presenting it, and a little bit of public speaking in a way. Although this is still exclusively online, I did show them my own primary prediction in the form of a YouTube video, just as a way to get them used to talking in front of at least a camera, if not each other. Ideally, this is more of a public speaking tool in class, but if we're going to do this online, and I want to take this beyond just the comment section, I think posting a quick YouTube video, assuming they all have the wherewithal and the knowledge to do this, could be a nice start. So this is just a little
Hey everybody, so I think
clip
in the New York
from my primary
for the
prediction.
Democrats, I think Hillary Clinton is going to win, but I think it's going to be a little bit closer than the experts think. The latest poll from Gravis shows me that she's up about 15 points on Bernie Sanders. I found that on the poll section from RealClearPolitics.com. Gravis has her up 15 points, which is pretty significant, but is not quite as high as she was up about a week or 2 ago. So I think, like I said, I think it'll be closer. Also, I think this will give a lot of energy to Sanders supporters, because even though Hillary Clinton is from New York, the fact that that lead is closing a little bit shows that maybe he's gaining a little bit of momentum in national polls for sure.
So this was just one example of a video that they could do. They could pretty much just summarize their paragraphs in the form of a video, and it can be 30 seconds, it can be a minute. It's just another form of kind of public speaking practice for them. I also give them a written example here about Bernie Sanders and New Hampshire just above the embedded video here. I just thought this was another way to get them interacting with technology away from Schoology, and just increasing their savvy with some other resources. The last assignment I had here was, will Donald Trump get to 1,237 delegates? This is, again, something I didn't want them to just do in the form of comments. That's kind of how it started initially. But my most important thing here was that if they believe he's going to get there, explain why in a sentence or 2. Again, citing sources and defending opinions, these are 2 things that are not explicitly listed in social studies standards, but these are things that they'll be encountering as they get to high school and get to college. This is a 9th grade class, after all. My target audience here was 9th graders. So the idea of citing sources, even if they're just websites and links from this, and defending opinions a little bit, something I want them to get used to. I did create an online poll with Poll Everywhere. I hope it shows up all right. I gave 4 possible choices to this question. Will he get to the delegates before the national convention this summer? The 4 choices were: yes, he absolutely will; yes, but it will be very close; no, not even close; and no, but almost. It gave me a chance to reply first, and I went with no, but almost. So I don't anticipate there being any other interesting choices to that. I wanted to make this kind of funny, but I figured that those were 4 pretty realistic responses, just to get them thinking objectively about this. So again, just another means of getting them out on the interwebs and away from Schoology, and accessing other stuff. And seeing that that poll took me all of 5 minutes to write, It even gives you kind of some sort of sample username without even having to prompt you with login info. So it's a very easy thing to create. In fact, I think for future assignments, I could even have students create their own poll questions maybe every week or something like that. And then just have students take turns coming up with some kind of maybe trivia question or multiple choice question that we could look at or kind of come back to every day. I attached a few more things here. There's a PDF that's all about election vocabulary. I haven't done much else with this file, and I don't know that I plan to. This is just kind of a little study guide for students to look at. We did review something like this in class, and I would probably make a poster of this and continue to come back to it during our in-class time. But it's just vocabulary that we keep seeing here: election, party, nominate, candidate, campaign, things like that. This is something that they can just always kind of look at, take their own notes on, but something that I'll be able to create in the form of just like a poster for us to look at all the time when we are in class. I did want to give them a quiz, and that's part of this assignment. So this is a study guide, and I did mention later in the quiz that it would be verbatim, that my quiz or my expectations of them would be to answer these exact questions when it comes to their quiz or their test. And so this is the outline of it. It was to name the 2 major political parties in the USA, and also to just analyze the pluses and minuses of living in different societies or countries in which there are 0, 1, 2, or multiple parties to choose from. So I said name 2 candidates for each party. We've been looking a lot at personalities and candidates. This is something they should be able to do. Name a good and a bad thing about having only 1 party in your country, having only 2 parties in your country, having many parties in your country. And as I said, this is the study guide, but I did want them to actually take this quiz. Now, I didn't want to set up this quiz on Schoology. I wanted to give them some options, either to stay online and get out and use some other resources, or just kind of do it the old-fashioned way if they really do feel like they're going to be able to show their work the best way. I said this will not be a traditional pencil and paper quiz, although they will have that choice. They're going to work with partners, and the job is to just present them to me like they're the expert. So whatever they end up doing, whatever medium they end up choosing, it's their job to present it to me like they're the experts here. So I've given them the study guide, and I do want the answers to be there in whatever medium they choose, and that's their assignment, is to basically just choose any kind of medium in which they want to present these things. They can make a YouTube video. They can make a good old-fashioned poster in class. Of course, they could just take this pencil and paper too in class. I'm not opposed to that. I just know that it doesn't accommodate for all students and all kinds of learners in our class. Make a Prezi. All of our students have a lot of savvy with Prezi. This is something that they learned a few years ago in a little media class at our school. So I know that all of those students have a background in Prezi, and they have fun with it. They have a lot of fun with it. Making a mind map, which is another thing that I just showed you, another way to organize their thoughts a little bit. That would be another really great way to do it, just visually, and then explain it to me. Or to maybe make a presentation with Google Slides. They also all have Gmail accounts, and they're all pretty familiar with Google Slides. These are just alternative ways to make their presentation. They don't have to do this, but this is something I would be willing to give time in class to do. And whenever they're finished and they're practiced and they feel like they're ready to show me, then I would take them one-on-one or one-on-two in this case with their partner, and they would have 5 minutes or however much time they need to present those answers to me and show me what they know. I just think this is a good alternative to doing this on pen and paper, which is what I ended up doing in class. And like I said, I know that it just doesn't accommodate for every student. I can tell all my English learners I don't care about their spelling, I just care about answers. I can tell them that all they want. They'll still worry about spelling, and I think they'll still worry about whether I'm getting the picture in the way that they're writing it. So this is another way for various kinds of learners, and especially English learners, to express these answers and just show what they know in somewhat different ways. Sorry, my computer's being a little bit slow. That's about all I had to show here. I do have the standards attached here. Now there are standards in the state of Minnesota across all high school levels, 9, 10, 11, and 12, in which students are to understand political processes and government institutions, and especially here to evaluate the impact of political parties. That's exactly what we've been doing here. This idea of living in a one-party system or a two-party system or a multiple-party system, this is something I really want to have them think about as they get older and they get civically involved, the plus and minuses of having to really identify with either the Democrats or the Republicans here. and just growing up, the pluses and minuses of living in a country where, like it or not, you generally have to identify on a national level and even sometimes a local level with one of two options. And then this one, free and fair elections are key elements of the United States political system, shaped by elections, how our system is shaped by elections and the process. I think another part of this, the fact that we can cover this every day, and I mentioned in my Petsikuta, one reason I wanted to teach this is because we're able to cover this on a daily basis. The idea of this being a horse race, and this being a very unique horse race